The NBA never ceases to amaze. Last night, we only had 3 games of NBA action, and you would think perhaps only 3 games. Maybe we're not going to get some unbelievable entertainment. But no, the NBA never ceases to amaze. It's the most consistent, good product that you can have. Where on a nightly basis, you're seeing buzzer beaters. On a nightly basis, you're seeing improbable comeback victories. And last night, obviously, no exception. You had what was one of the greatest comebacks you'd have to say of the last couple of seasons, where the Phoenix Suns are maybe 7, 8 minutes away in the fourth quarter from losing. They're down by over 20 points to the Sacramento Kings. Phoenix down by over 20. And if you were watching the game, you would see De'Aaron Fox playing pretty well, and you'd see Malik Monk playing incredibly well. Domantas Sabonis contributing per usual, but with the way Monk was scoring the basketball, there was nothing the Suns could do to stop him. And then suddenly, about midway into the fourth quarter, or a little bit more than midway into the fourth quarter, the Suns tightened up on the defensive end. And they do this in spurts. I've seen them play live at Footprint Center. They did it when I was there. They have points where they look like the best team in the NBA, where it's like, okay, they're just gonna blow out. They're just gonna run away with this. And then for some reason they don't. But what happens is it comes down the stretch. The Suns can play well in spurts, but when it comes down the stretch, they need contributions from other players. So we know that they have the big three. They have Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and of course they have their staple Devin Booker. But what happens down the stretch in a close fourth quarter, or in a fourth quarter that they're trying to get close? What happens is the other team just defends those 3 players. They defend Beal, they defend Booker, and they defend Durant. And what happens is you end up having wide open players from those other 2 positions. So last night, the genius was, or I don't know if genius is the right word, but in terms of execution, the genius was that Grayson Allen hit 2 threes to get that run started. The Suns started playing well in the defensive end. They got a run out, transition bucket to Chimezi Matu, who was playing the center. Then you had Kevin Durant coming up with defensive plays. You have 2 3-pointers by Grayson Allen. Then you have Durant contributing with a 3 during that span. You have Durant contributing with a dunk in transition, Beal a dunk in transition, the defense turning into the offense, clamping down on the defensive end. And then the 2 really big 3-pointers were right near the end of the fourth quarter, where Eric Gordon was standing out on an island and nobody nobody near him, 10, 15 feet. And there's a reason for that. Eric Gordon has, with the exception of 1 or 2 nights for this season of 35 plus games that we've seen so far, he's been a walking corpse out there. When I saw them play live against the Magic, the Phoenix Suns, Eric Gordon nearly recorded a 0-0-0-0 stat line. He got 1 rebound in the game, and that was all he did, and that was right at the end of the fourth quarter. Eric Gordon canning 2 3-pointers late to give them the lead. Who would have thought? But the Sacramento Kings are finding and inventing actively. They're in the laboratory and they're actively working to invent new ways of losing games. They're just coming off their incredible defeat against Milwaukee, where they had that game in regulation and blew it, and they had that game in overtime and they missed the foul shots. And what can you say about this Kings team? Something is off. Because last season, they had the best record. 1 or 2, maybe the Nuggets had the best record. I'll have to double check that. But, I mean, the Sacramento Kings were 1 or 2 in the West. Right now, where are they sitting? Are they sitting in 7th or 8th? According to the standings, they're sitting in 7th at 23 and 17. So they're 6 games above 500. They're on a 3-game losing streak. But the way they're losing these games is just like nothing we've ever seen. Missing the foul shots and giving up the game in overtime against Milwaukee to a buzzer beater 3-pointer by Damian Lillard, amplified by their next game, where they're up by 22 points in the fourth quarter with 7 minutes and change to go. And They just can't score another bucket. Phoenix clamps them down, runs in transition, and gets 4 3-pointers, two from Grayson Allen, two from Eric Gordon, and also a fifth one from Durant. Right there, 15 points. 15 points. Throw in the dunk in transition by Durant, the dunk in transition by Beal, and the dunk in transition by Matua. There's 21 points right there. Defense turning into offense and wide open 3-pointers. For the most part, that was how the Suns won this game. And if the Suns are going to get that level of production from Eric Gordon, where they can rely on him to hit the open three, and they're going to get Grayson Allen, who, by the way, has been having a pretty good season. When I watched them live, he impressed me as well because he's not shy to take the shot. He's been hitting the three pretty consistently, and he's also a decently athletic player. So he adds a little bit of athleticism to that team. And that's helpful also on the defensive end, and he can get up and dunk, and he sometimes attempts ferocious dunks. Doesn't always get them, but it's entertaining to watch, and at least he plays with a little something, a little fire. So you have the Suns beating the Kings with one of the most improbable comebacks that we've seen recently. In some of the other games, we had two others. We had the Clippers beating the Thunder 128-117, and the Clippers remaining one of the hottest teams in the NBA over a long duration. So the Clippers they've continued to have their players do something that I've been talking about recently where they fall into roles. And this team, for the first few games that they were together post the trade of having James Harden on the team with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, nobody was in any roles. When add Russell Westbrook into that, and it all just gets very confusing. But with Russ accepting the bench role and Kawhi and Paul George and James Harden all finding the ways to play together, and then you have Terrence Mann, Daniel Tice, Norman Powell coming off the bench. This was a very well distributed game that they played. They had 9 players. They went 9 deep, and no one played less than 16 minutes out of their 9 players. So they have a solid unit that they figured out how to use here. And if they can stay healthy, this is an incredible thing that they've figured out where everyone is playing their role and everyone's happy in their role. And last night it was behind 38 points from Paul George. But the next night it could be behind 38 points from Kawhi Leonard. It could be behind 25 from Leonard, 25 from George, 25 from Harden, and you know the the 10 points plus that you'll get off the bench from Westbrook with a couple of assists. Last night, Russell Westbrook, he had contributed 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and 11 points coming off the bench in 22 minutes. That's fantastic. That's the role that he's playing on this team. And when you have a team where everyone's bought into their role, this is what happens. Now the Thunder dropping a couple of games in a row, but if I had to guess, I'd say they're probably going to figure it out there because they're too consistent and their top players are too consistent. Shea plays very, very well every game. Last night he actually had a bit of a down game. He only scored 19 points, probably the lowest he's scored in a good long time. But between Shea, Jalen Williams, Dort, Isaiah Joe, these guys are consistent players. So I would say that they're probably going to swing back the other way and start winning ball games again. I wouldn't worry about them too much. So that took the Kings versus the Suns in that epic collapse or epic victory, however you want to view it. And then you have the Clippers beating the Thunder 128-117, and that brings us to the first game of the evening. We're going a bit all over the place with the order of the games here, but the 76ers behind a next level unreal performance from Joel Embiid defeating the Denver Nuggets, your NBA champions. 126, 121, the Sixers getting the victory with another 41 points from Joel. So Joel Embiid's had 41 points now for the last 2 games, and he's turned the 30-point game streak up to 18. Pretty incredible stuff. Embiid looked a little better tonight than I thought he looked the previous night, where he seemed to be a little slow. But where I think the Nuggets messed up here, and where I think the Sixers knew exactly what they were doing, and I give a lot of credit to Nick Nurse for this, is Nick Nurse knows exactly how to use his timeouts. He stores his timeouts, he saves them up, and the timeouts are not strategic in the sense of we're trying to stop a run, we're trying to reset our defense. The timeouts are fully based on one thing. When Embiid has just ran up and down the court a few times and he's had to use a burst, they call the timeout. every single timeout. That's how they use it. And it's genius because the way to beat this Sixers team, at least I think so, is to run them out of the building. Just run up and down the court, up and down the court. But Denver didn't exactly realize this in this game. And I think they would realize it if they had to face the Sixers in an NBA Finals, if the Sixers could actually get there, and if the Nuggets could get there again. But they need, and they've done this before, they need to just run them out of the building with their offense. The second their opponent scores, inbound the ball, run it down court. And that's how you would get Joel Embiid really tired. And then he would start to be missing the shots. And specifically, he would start missing the 3-pointers that he takes at the end of games when he doesn't want to expend the energy to go to the hoop. That's something that he does all the time. And he did it last night. He hit a couple of 3-pointers and he hit a couple of long twos as well. Now, you can take that away if you start to run him out of the gym. But you have to start doing that early because you need them to use up their timeouts a little bit earlier in the fourth quarter so that they don't have that many to use at the end of the fourth quarter and in the middle of the fourth quarter. And it was really the about 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter where the Sixers pulled away by too many points for the Nuggets to make the late comeback. And Embiid was playing too well, and with the extra timeouts that they had available to them at that point, they were able to get Embiid the rest whenever he wanted. But not only that, the Nuggets and Mike Malone were using their timeouts. And that they used a timeout or two that definitely moved more to the benefit of the Sixers than it did to the Nuggets. So I think that if you're playing Joel Embiid, the game plan has to be to run him out of the building, get him real tired. He's had problems with knee soreness. And if you can just get him to run up and down the court on that bad knee, and on the frame that he has where he's always struggled with running up and down the court. It's been the gas tank that's been the biggest problem. It's the only area where he struggles, and that is what makes him miss threes and miss long twos late in games. But last night, when he's able to get the rest that he needs at the perfect moments, just recover, get the quick timeout, he had an incredible game, and he should be really proud of the way he played, and he should be proud of the emphasis that the want and the will and the desire to play and dominate in the fourth quarter and get the crowd rolling. And he's learned how to do that. He gets the crowd behind him. He shows them that he wants the victory, and they love it. That's what a fan wants. They want to see that you, the NBA player, wants the victory as much as they want you to win it. And when you give them that, they're going to eat it up. So another great victory for the Sixers and another great ball game for Joel Embiid, and we'll see if he can keep it up over the course of not just the regular season, but the area that he's in is a little unfortunate because Joel Embiid is in the place where it doesn't really matter what you do during the regular season because we've seen you do it so many times before, specifically last season where he won the MVP. And when you've done it in the regular season and blown it in the playoffs several times, even when you've had a good supporting cast, like the season where he had a good Ben Simmons and a great Jimmy Butler, it all hinges on the playoffs. So you can have another amazing regular season, but what is that different than what you did last year? We know how great you are in the regular season, but the question is, are you going to come up big in the big moments and take it to the finals, win a finals? Are you going to be able to do that? Because if not, then it's all for naught. What's the point? What's the point of having a great season and getting booted out in the second round of the playoffs again? What's the point in getting everyone's hopes up just to bring them crashing back down to earth for the 6th straight season? So he's in a bit of an unfortunate state where no matter how well he does during the regular season, we can never give him the credit that he deserves because he doesn't really deserve it when he comes up short in the playoffs. And that's what his success is really going to hinge on. The regular season essentially doesn't matter. But to an extent, it does matter because you need a win in the regular season to get a good seed in the playoffs. But really, what we need is him to be healthy the entire playoffs, and we need him to be in good shape to run up and down the court for 7 games in a tough 7-game series and still be able to hit the shots that he needs at the end of a close game with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And we're going to see if he can do that, and that's going to shape whether he goes down as a great player or an all-time great. So those are the 3 games that we had last night. We have many, many more games tonight. We have Magic against the Hawks. I guess that could be a good game. Timberwolves versus Pistons. Any Pistons game is not really that exciting. The Spurs versus the Celtics. Just a game that I don't know who would really want to see that. See the Spurs just destroy the Celtics. You have the Knicks against the Rockets. We need to see if Jalen Brunson is back. But the Rockets have lost a couple. The Knicks struggling without Brunson, so we'll see who can win that game. You have the Bucks against the super red hot Cavaliers with 5 wins in a row, but the Bucks won 3 games in a row too. So this is a good game of two teams, the Bucks and the Cavaliers clashing at just the right time. 2 win streaks at stake. Then you have the Heat going against the Raptors. The Heat should hopefully get another victory here. Then you have the Hornets against the Pelicans, a game that the Pelicans have got to win. And then you have Mavericks against the Lakers. This one should be good. We'll see if Luka Doncic returns. If he does, this should be a great game. But even if Doncic is out, they've shown over the last couple of games that Hardaway has just been on an absolute bender. So Hardaway is going to keep shooting like that. He's going to keep the Mavericks in any game that they play right now. So you have Mavericks against the Lakers tonight, and then you have the Warriors against the Jazz. The Jazz are the hottest team in the NBA. They've won 9 out of their last 10 games, and they're not showing any sign of stopping. And what an opportunity against a struggling Warriors team where struggling isn't even the word. We need to invent a new word to come up with the sort of nightmare season that the Warriors are having. So, Warriors versus Jazz in Utah. And then you have a game that nobody's going to care to watch. The final game of the evening at 10 Eastern. It's going to be the Nets against the Trailblazers. So everyone's going to be watching the Warriors Jazz game. When that's over, we're going to probably call it a night and look at the scoreboard tomorrow and see what happened in the Nets Blazers game. But that's going to do it for us right now. This is NBA your NBA avenue for casual sports conversation and a good all around time. And we're your NBA venue for a great time every time. We'll catch you on the next one.